Hey, film friends, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film, a podcast where we break down movies with some of my closest friends and special guests. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there is a show that's been going on now for 50 years. It's kind of a big deal. But it all started long ago with some ragamuffin comics trying to break into the establishment on one chaotic night. Live from this bedroom, it's Jason Reitman's Saturday Night. Okay, so to open, listen, this is all, not all, but this part right here is on my Letterboxd written review of this film Saturday Night. So if you hear it and get a little deja vu, like maybe I feel like I've read this, or no, I'm not plagiarizing unless it's myself. But I think it's important to hear it auditorily because it does sort of set up our discussion right here. Very good. When I was a kid, I loved peanut butter and fluff sandwiches. They provided a sort of gift, the illusion, albeit shaky, of real substance. You know, like whatever we would call the nutritional value of peanut butter. I mean, this wasn't natural peanut butter, so not a whole lot, but you get it. Good fats, right? Okay. Alongside what we really wanted, sugary confections of the most delectable and empty kind. So, witness me, listeners, attempting to use a half-baked, or rather uncooked, metaphor as a rephrase for that age-old style versus substance debate. Guys, the thing is, unfortunately, it's kind of unavoidable here with Saturday Night, the whole style substance thing, because this is a film where Jason Reitman is apparently trying to funnel Robert Altman's whole everybody talks over each other in a crowded room or outdoor concert staple, right? Things that you would have seen in things like in films like Nashville or The Player or, lots of other movies. But he's trying to funnel that through Aaron Sorkin's whole walk and talks, which are about snappy dialogue punctuated by these sharp barbs at rhythmic intervals. And then, of course, these like whole heartstring pulling, like hyper mawkish, overly sentimental, grand, high concept thoughts, like something you would see in the newsroom. So he's doing all of that. But the unique thing here is that he's done all of this inside a picture which plays like hagiographic cosplay, which is a way of saying that this is a film for Saturday Night Live worshipers. And that's what this is. I mean, I could tell you that the plot, but that part's simple. It's the first night that Saturday Night has begun to air, and they're trying to get this thing, this project, off the ground against a literal running clock. I mean, sorta, right? The film almost plays as real time, but not quite. So that's what's going on, right? Themes. We always talk about themes. What is the theme here? Well, it's this philosophical idea that this was a clash between generations and perspectives. And that makes for interesting movie making on the surface. But it kind of ultimately falls apart upon interrogation. Now, the question is, how deeply do you want to interrogate this work? And I think we should keep that in mind as we're watching through, because as a watchable experience, this one hums. Like we'll get into the different below the line stuff, but it's very watchable. It's extremely well made, and it holds together on the wavelength at which it exists. So if you don't want to go any deeper, then you're probably not going to find many criticisms, honestly. But I do think that this clash, which is to say the old guard and the young guard, this brash group of young, confident comics, a scrappy and fearless ensemble of comedians and writers who revolutionized television for decades to come. Reitman is presenting or giving us the raw energy, nerves, and also that confident ambition that undergirded this team and their seemingly unflappable leader, Lorne Michaels, right? That's the presentation. Okay, cool. But, this was a network that has Johnny Carson with millions of viewers. Yeah, I'm sorry, but they're not just going to let some fledgling thing start without a clear vision of what it is, at least on some level, right? So I think that pitting Lorne Michaels and Dick Ebersol at odds, or some of the stuff with the caricature of Dave Cabot. I just don't think it would have happened at this level. But again, that makes for less interesting, sort of frenetic 24 style movie making, right? So we're going to come back to some more unique retelling retelling elements soon. But I think that's basically the plot and the theme. We're trying to put this thing on, and we're really just trying to show how brazen and bold this group of incredibly talented performers was. Where I think that this film excels is that, to Reitman's credit, I mean, he is directing hard here. I mean, this film, I said in my review, it is edited to within an inch of its life. And I'm not sure about the rewrite process, but it seems to have as many as the events that it's depicting on screen. Also, the actors who are chosen are very suitable, almost in every instance, to their real life counterparts, and some actually amazingly so. What I like the best about it is that they're not doing pure impersonations. Like, this isn't Frank Caliendo. So because of that, they stay away from caricature, which I think makes the film overall more effective. Now, some people, if you were like, that doesn't sound like Belushi at all, like, okay, cool. Then, I mean, you're probably going to get hung up 1,000 different ways about Gilda Radner and some other stuff. But like, overall, you know, for Cory Michael Smith, it's this tall, cocksureness, just arrogance. But I think the most effective performance is Dylan O'Brien. He's giving us like Dan Aykroyd's. It's not exactly his imitation and his cadence, but it's his nerviness. It's like his antic speech style that we all kind of came to know. I mean, in my case, it was Ghostbusters, but like through Coneheads and all of the different things that Aykroyd did. So I think it's good. This thing just never stops moving, and it's genuinely funny in many places, several places at least. I want to give some more props to some other below the line stuff. Let's see. Jon Batiste score. I think it's fantastic. It's edgy, and the instruments are almost impressionistic. So it's like overlapping sound effects, almost like constant music and sounds kind of low in the mix. And what that does is it kind of gets you like internally feeling uncomfortable in your own anticipation. Because I mean, if you're talking about thematically what's occurring, it's like, will it or won't it? That's what this film is trying to set up as suspense. And again, that's going to become a problem because guess what? We know it happened. Spoiler alert, SNL actually occurred. Like Saturday Night did premiere on this date, right? So the suspense is kind of stripped out from under us, but the music does help us feel like at any moment this thing could collapse. The cinematography, I mean, the cameras are often handheld. They're frantically moving. They're following people all over the place. Lots of whip pans. We already spoke of the film's kinetic and effective editing. I think, obviously, that on top of those things, the costume design is on point. So, you know, if you love this movie, the characters, what they're presenting, all these sorts of things, I suspect that all of this stuff will really work on you. Now, let's turn to some cons. Because I wouldn't be doing my critical job very well at all if I didn't interrogate the film. And also, I think for me, I'm the perfect guy to ask these critiques because did I love SNL growing up? No. Honestly, no. I love Sandler. You know, I love Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. I liked the Mike Myers flicks. I liked the Spade and Farley movies. That was my generation. But yeah, I mean, I saw the Norm Macdonald things. I saw the Nealon stuff. I saw some of the movies that of this original area. I obviously love Fletch and things like that. But like, did I watch the show faithfully week to week and all the early year specials? And every Saturday night was I planted in front of the TV at 11:30 in the East Coast? No, I wasn't. And I think that's my fear of this movie, is that I'm not precisely sure who this film is for, which is another way of saying I'm worried that it could get lost in the dreaded middle. Because Saturday Night plays as this glossy, frenetic ride, but it is actually kind of a mile wide and an inch deep. So, again, if you're an outsider who doesn't know these characters and their trademarks at all, which I don't think is me, and to his credit, I mean, Reitman is kind of assuming Saturday Night Live's place in our culture, which is to say prolific, right? I mean, gargantuan. Like, it's shaped literally comedies for decades. You know, look at the stars. It's had a preternatural ability to grab stars, mint them, and then send them out. I haven't even talked about Will Ferrell or, you know, all of those things. So I think that that stuff is assumed. But if you don't know, for instance, that like Kaufman's Mighty Mouse or Milton Berle's reputation as, you know, Mr. BDE, I just think that some of this could fly over your head. And I didn't want Reitman to give us like a primer, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if you know nothing, then you need more. And if you're a historian of this late night institution, or like you've watched one of the, God, how many documentaries are there about this? Then I feel like you'd sit there and go, like, what am I getting new here? Like, just how close to the edge Belushi really was? I mean, yeah, probably, but I wonder if the reaction for the real SNL stan, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments, would be like, okay, I knew all this. Like, teach me something new. Like, like, get us into deeper waters. Get into the idiosyncrasies of Lauren and Rosie Schuster's, is that her last name? If I've screwed it up, I butchered it. I'm sorry. But Lauren and Rosie's relationship. Dig deeper on Belushi. Or how about present Dave Tebbutt as a person as much as a caricature? Or how about we can gather more on Jim Henson, that he like just seemed like he kind of wandered off like a Woodstock stage to play with like these cool hippie type puppets. Like, it's all there for the taking, but I think that there's a picture here which would still move breathlessly, but slow down in opportune times to teach its audience about the subject it so clearly worships. Now, that's tricky, because I think the one time that the film does try to do this, in that ice skating sequence with Gilda and with Jon, this whole like drama of will he sign the contract in time, it doesn't really work. It's not that effective. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be. I just think for whatever reason, that scene is one of the lesser effective things. But so, like, I mean, what makes the film work for it is actually what makes it less real life, right? I mean, come on. Like, they're not literally laying bricks on the set. Like, guys, that's probably a metaphor. You know, like, at like an hour before showing, or like they don't have the set list and they're scrapping things and throwing things up. Like, come on. Or they don't have their guests, or who's going to do what, or they haven't figured out how long Billy Crystal's act is going to be, or I just don't think that all of that stuff is happening in 90 minutes. But again, Sorkin-wise, if you shove that into that, what you create is, you know, a pretty frenetic and cool watching experience. I just don't know that the film doesn't feel anything. I had a friend that described it as flat, another that said it felt hollow or empty. It doesn't interrogate, for instance, any of the difficult things that have been said about the curmudgeon or the despot or the drill sergeant that Lorne Michaels could be. And again, I think when you're trying to do hagiography, how much do you really want to dig into that? When you're trying to present these people as saints of a sort, then maybe we kind of whitewash some of their sinnerdom. So I don't know. I think that all of that stuff is in one way of saying, like, hey, Nick, how about you judge the film you got instead of the one you wished for? But judging the film that I got, it's quite good. It's effective. It's watchable. But I do feel like from the top, that I was eating stuff with a lot of empty calories. Last thing, look, LaBelle, he's too young. Like, I'm sorry. LaBelle is really good. Like, he's great in The Fablemans, playing a young Spielberg. And then he did this little movie, which many of you probably have not seen this year earlier, called Snack Shack, in which he's playing kind of like this young. It's like a variation of what Cruise is doing in Risky Business, basically, like a young entrepreneur trying to make things happen and make money for himself, and like and it's all. But like, it feels more like maybe what LaBelle. I don't know what he's really like, but it's clear that he has depth and breadth and range. But the issue here is, like, Lorne Michaels is 30 around this time. I mean, you could look it up, but I'm like, LaBelle can barely get legal drinks in the U.S. I mean, so I think he captures like this courage and guts and like quiet confidence. Yeah. Is it a solid performance? Yes. I just don't know that it's like super accurate of what Lorne would have been like. And I feel like you've been hearing that. And if you love this film as it is, you're probably like, hey, Furman, like, get a grip. Of course it's not accurate. It's a movie. They're just trying to give you the events. And if that's your read on this, like, I totally get it. Totally get it. I'm just not quite there. I'm a little bit removed from it. But you're still, to conclude, I remain impressed at the hyper flick that we received. I think Jason Reitman is often unfairly derided. I love some of his flicks. I thought Young Adult, Tully, some of his early stuff, Up in the Air, is like a favorite of mine. I think he's been unfairly derided in my estimation for some of his projects. And he gets into this like overly sentimental hagiographic thing. I think that's what's kind of held some of the last couple Ghostbusters movies back. I mean, among other things, which I talk about you can watch my reviews on those for that information. But so maybe he needs better selection in his projects. But I will say, I think it is what he did for Sony with Frozen Empire and with, was it Afterlife, that enabled him to get the whatever 30 million or whatever he needed to make this movie. So, one for them, one for me, that kind of thing. And I guess what I'm trying to say is there are real goods on display here. I would recommend this movie if you like Saturday Night Live and you just want to see some cosplay, see it. If you don't know anything about it and you want to just dip your toes in, see it. If you're looking for a deep, behind the scenes, like poignant and trenchant observational thing about the dynamics in the early seasons, but between these like incredibly arrogant, confident, brash characters like John Belushi and Chevy Chase, this probably is not the one you want. Okay, so final score. I'm going to give this one 3.2 out of 5 stars, which is to say it's above just a solid film. I highly enjoyed it. I love the performances, particularly Dylan O'Brien. And I'm glad I got the movie because I did learn a few things. And well, that was one crazy night. So that's about all I've got. I would love to hear your comments on this movie. What did you like? What didn't you? Do you vibe with what I'm saying? Do you have a whole new set of different critiques? Do you have a whole new set of praise that I just flat out missed? Let me know in the comments below. Again, signing off, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film. Stay firm, my friends.